Okay. So, glad I was early. All right, so let's just take a moment to kind of pretend we're comfortable in our seats. And kind of letting go of whatever you were doing a minute ago and whatever plans you have for the future. And just relax your body being here now and invite your mind to join your body here. Kind of scan your body, see if there are any spots of tension. And just allow your breath to ease that tension. And think of the reason you decided to show up today. And set a motivation, an intention to use this time well with respect to that reason. And combine that intention with the wish that it be of benefit, not just to yourself, but that it will ripple out to benefit those around you. I'm going to recite the four immeasurables. Shows up. And the four immeasurables is referring to the four immeasurable minds. So these are minds we're trying to develop, states of mind. So, we're trying to develop the mind that has love for all sentient beings. We're trying to develop the mind that has compassion for all sentient beings. We're trying to develop the mind that really, wishes for everyone to reach a state of happiness that has no suffering at all. And we want that for everyone. So to do that, we need to practice the mind of equanimity. So we're not showing, so we treat everybody as if they're our precious friends or our precious loved ones, not based on whether we like them, don't like them, find them difficult, or that we're indifferent to them, like so many strangers. So the first line is about love, according to the definitions in Buddhism. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Now, Natalie has, what is up? Natalie, Natalia? Oh, and now, what do I do next? The refuge. I'm having a day. All right. It was inhaling paint fumes overnight. Oh, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit the people. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. So take a quick moment to just observe what's going on in your mind right now, or maybe what was the predominant thing going on in your mind all week. Or maybe what was the most interfering mind you had. What kinds of states of mind you had that seemed to get in your way or make you suffer or make you happy. Does anything come to mind? Did you notice? No one noticed. You did notice. No one's fessing up. Yeah. Impatience. My personal favorite. Talk about an easy one to recognize that it makes me suffer. How about you? Yeah. Okay. Impatience. Any others? Yeah.
I had a laundry list.
You had a whole laundry list. That's good. That gives you something you want to work on. No, we all do. We all have a laundry list.
Self-care. Defeat.
I didn't hear
Defeat.
that. Defeat. That's a toughie. Self-cherishing or self-centeredness.
Self-judgment.
Self-judgment. Yeah, that's popular.
Anxiety.
Anxiety. That's popular. Yeah, you and we'll go out to lunch. So how can we respond? How can you work with impatience?
Like just being aware of it.
Yes.
Afterwards.
Yep.
And more I focus on it afterwards.
Yep.
My goal is to be more patient in the moment.
And what does that mean to you?
Well, I feel like if I'm more patient.
But what does being more patient look like to you?
It will be probably pausing a lot.
Yeah.
And not expecting others to have the same kind of sensibilities or react the same way as us.
Okay, so pause a lot. Be aware that others don't have the same sensibilities that you do. They may not be on the same time schedule you are. They're all those kinds of things. And so I would want
that people and I would feel less.
okay. To when we are facing different habits of mind, like if we have a habit of impatience or we have a habit of self-centeredness or a habit of self-loathing, habit, all anxiety, is we need to recognize it when it arises, pause, which just means not reacting from that place by saying anything or doing anything that might make it worse, make you regret it, but that's a risk. If you pause, you might notice that it's not as strong. You move on or whatever. But later, when you're not in the thick of it, because when it's present in your mind, not a lot you can do. That's why we call them disturbed emotions, because our mind is disturbed. So the pause helps us just, this is what is. I'm angry, I'm impatient, I hate myself, I'm anxious, I'm worried, I failed, whatever the thing is, you just kind of, that's, and it's helpful if you recognize it will change, right? that our thoughts come and go again and again and again. They come again and we feed it. And what are the kinds of things that feed our emotions? What kind of thoughts? Has anybody heard the word rationalization? Anybody gone a week without a rationalization? So what is a rationalization? Feeling that way. Yeah. So we can feed our disturbing states of mind by going, well, it's way.
I can give it more attention, which means, I can continue.
And then perceive a negative state of mind, and then we justify it. So we want to do the reverse. We want to create, instead of just having that disturbing state of mind arise, we want to justify in the mind that was just to change it. We want to think of our reasons for why we don't want to come from that place, and how we're not with it, that we suffer because of it, we hurt others because of it, because our relationships will improve. Because if we're having self-loathing, yeah, judgment of others, judgment of ourselves, that's something most of us probably would be happier if we did without. So, really want to, instead of going towards rationalizing this state that's miserable, go towards, what are my reasons for not wanting to feed this state of mind? Not in the thick of it. When you practice, you can do it even in the thick of it. It doesn't mean the state, which implies the state of mind still arises. So hoping that because you come up with reasons wanting to change your mind, and that you have good reasons, reasons that really are meaningful to you, does not mean that, like magic, it won't arise. It's going to arise, So we want to work with them so that they don't have so much power over our reactions, our responses to things, because that's our habit energy just pushing us. If we have a tendency towards these habits of mind, there's an energy there that just pushes us to keep going with it. Yeah.
It's not who we are. It's just something
It's
that's
just a state of mind, and it's temporary and it changes. According to one of our habits of mind is that we grasp onto things as if they're somehow permanent, that we are the nature of something or somebody else's. So when we judge other people, we're going, oh, you are that. And when we judge ourselves, we're thinking, I am this way. I can't do anything about it. I'm a miserable, horrible human being, or I'm wonderful, better than everybody else in this room. So whatever your disturbing emotion is. So certain states of mind, you really have to, like if it's a very strong disturbing state of mind, like anxiety or anger or self-loathing, you really have to, in that moment, a pause. First, you have to practice pausing, and going, okay, you don't have to do anything when you pause, except not speak and not do anything. That's exactly the point of the pause, is to not do anything, It's to take a breath, calm the mind down. In some circumstances, it's helpful, to take yourself out of that situation, because the condition is feeding that sense, So you have to take a break. And that may have to be later, because you can't do it right away, but you don't want to just ignore these states of mind are arising, because they cause us suffering. And our reactions from coming from that place can harm others as well as it can, it just keeps causing us suffering. So when, I'm a very anxious person. And so when anxiety, back when it was really out of control anxiety, when it would arise, I'd have to just go, okay, I have to talk to myself, just a popular strategy on my part, and just say, okay, I'm not, I promise. I just, in my mind, hi, Gina, I promise not to make it worse. So it's so important to recognize that we are, it's a habit of mind, and it hurts us. So we need to comfort ourselves, have self-compassion, go, oh, and support yourself in, like I would just say to myself, okay, I'm, maybe having a panic attack. I don't know, but I'm not going to do anything to make it worse. And part of that is feeding it with thought. Like, oh, you're a bad person for having this. Say, what are you, aren't you an adult? Why would you be so anxious? Blah, 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 blah. None of that helps. It doesn't matter. It's there. We don't have to beat ourselves up for it. We make mistakes. We say the wrong thing. We get, there are all sorts of things, We don't have to beat ourselves up for it. We're not Buddhists, We just need to recognize, ooh, I have this habit and I'm, and I don't want this mistake to keep recurring. So I want to work on it because I'm worth it. Protecting my mind is a worthwhile thing to do, and it will benefit those around me. No question. But we need to take some time on our own, when you're having that coffee break, or which is not what you need when you're anxious. But anyway, where you reflect on either, okay, am I still in that state? And if you are, be gentle, easy, try to breathe, don't demand a whole lot out of yourself, like get over it. That's not going to help. With impatience, things like that, it's okay. I'm impatient. And sometimes you see how ridiculous it is. You can just go, well, what do I expect? Never have to wait, never have to, whatever. Do I never talk too much, on the phone, all that stuff, when you're getting irritated with, will you ever shut up kind of thing. So, so then it's easier to let go of it. When you look at it and go, okay, this is not a big deal. I'm making it a big deal by my disturbing emotion. The fact that it's arisen, if I feed that, I'm turning something very tiny into a big deal. Does that make sense? Because that's one of the things we don't recognize that we're actually doing. But, the Buddhist definition of aversion or anger and attachment or grasping and craving and all that kind of stuff, not love, but when you just have a craving for something that you desire and you're very attached to the idea that happiness is in that object and you want it. Well, both of those, the aversion and the attachment, are exaggerations of the object. Whether the object is someone else, whether it's chocolate cake, or whether it's you. We are exaggerating something. So there's, and we don't want to take that exaggeration. And if we tend to have a tendency to turn it outward, to blaming others, and turn it into this kind of like, it's them. If they were just not in my face, I'd be fine. And we don't want to turn it within. I'm the problem, We need to take responsibility for our negative habits and recognize, maybe I'm part of this suffering experiencing, and not think it's outside of you. Because we've all had days where we have proof that not everything bothers us. Like we have days where it's like something that yesterday would have made us terribly impatient doesn't affect us today. We've had days where, we can't resist the chocolate cake, and then we have days where we can't. We are not one thing. We change. And we have different, depending on all sorts of conditions. And one of the conditions is what's going on in our minds. So if we're feeding negative states of mind, it's much more likely that's the state of mind that's going to be there. That's why we call them habits. So if, like, when you turn the anger inward or the suffering inward and, do a lot of self-judgment, it's really important to ask yourself, is that really true? Am I like that 100% of the time? Am I even exaggerating this one instant of doing this? Because one of the things that I find so helpful is basically in the teachings, these disturbing states of mind are wrong. They're an exaggeration. They're not correct. They're not reliable. And so we shouldn't rely on them as if they're true. So that's one of those things that you can just, in your head, just kind of go, well, that's true. Because it's an exaggeration. You don't have to go much deeper than, well, that's not true. And also, if I'm in this state, my speech and my actions and my thoughts are not particularly reliable. So you kind of like, well, I'm not making any decisions in this moment because I'm in an unreliable state of mind. And that decision can be about what you're going to say next. Just, is this making sense? Okay, so this is the work. It's just like you said, you've got to just recognize that some state of mind that you've got a habit of doing, or just happens to pop up today, is not helping. And so you pause and do nothing. If in that moment you've already had some practice knowing why, this is not a reliable state of mind, then you kind of go, oh, I know you.
Here you are.
Here you are. Hello, friend. And so, so that you have something to counter it instead of, that impulse to rationalize that this is about something outside of you, which you don't have any control over. So if you want power, go within. If you want to feel like you have some control, take care of your mind. And it may not change any outcome out here. But if you feel okay in your mind, in your heart, if you're kind of like, oh, that's okay. Okay, so they don't like me. That's okay. That doesn't mean anything. You're not going to, even, the Buddha wasn't liked by everybody. The Dalai Lama is not liked by everybody, which, just floors me, But that's because I have a particular point of view, not because he is, by nature likable. That's grasping, at a view. My view. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. I need water. So if we have a habit of like beating up on ourselves for our disturbing habits, it's helpful. That's practicing a mind I'm trying to give up. You don't need to go there. It's, just keep reminding yourself that you're just feeding a falsehood. It's just not true. Whatever conclusion you're drawing, oh, I'm always like this. I'm never going to get over it. I'm never going to. No, that's true. And sometimes you have to think back on your life and find examples to prove to yourself it's not true. To recognize, like for one thing, we've all changed our minds, haven't we? Yeah, that's, like it's actually no big deal. We're totally capable of it. So telling ourselves that I'll never get out of this habit, I'll never change, is a lie that doesn't help. It can give us reasons to not try. Trying's the key. It's not this, like you got to become perfect, which is, we're very goal oriented in our culture. And we need to recognize what a setup that is. Because if all that matters is the outcome or the goal, where's your light? How about how you act now? We all know by just looking at our own experiences, at the world, that outcomes are not the most important part. And people use outcomes as an excuse for terrible behavior. What's that phrase? The end justifying the means. It's not true. It matters. The means matter. Being kind to yourself through the process of change matters. It's a habit we want to develop. So if you're really good at being kind to your friends who are struggling, use theirs, picture them next to you. And how would you talk to them in this moment? And then try to talk that way to yourself. Use whatever tool you can to change your tone towards yourself. So forgiveness, being able to, one of the practices we do in Tibetan Buddhism is that we try every day to purify our negative actions of body, speech, or mind. So at the end of the day, we kind of look at our day and go, yeah, that wasn't so good, and we will find, oh, that was pretty good. And then we rejoice about that. We don't have to purify that. But the mistakes or the things that we wish we hadn't quite done it quite like that, we take responsibility for in our minds. We really go, I regret that. And we want it to be heartfelt. I really regret that. And help bring up the reason. Why do I regret that? Because whatever your reasons are. I really want to try not to do that again. Now, it may mean I'm really going to try tomorrow not to do it, because we got to take baby steps. We're not going to be able to just say, oh, that was wrong, I'll never do it again. Yeah, that'd be nice. If we like that, and the whole world would be quite a bit different. So that's not it. And then we just, so we take on the responsibility. We have regret. We're relying on the teachings and say, we can do something about it. And, when we've got some teachings to help us know what to do about it. And then we can have a remedy for the mistake, that moment of, not so kind behavior. And we can do, there's certain Buddhist practices you can do, or you might apologize. Or, like if it's stinginess or something, you might decide to give a donation somewhere, Here's always fine. Just an aside. So, but this, this is, and then you remember that this is something you don't want to do, but you let it go. You don't carry around going, I can't believe I did that today, and turn it into some character assessment. That's not the goal. The goal is to recognize it, do something about it, and move forward. It's not about carrying a really heavy luggage around. So that's the difference between, in my view, between guilt and regret. Guilt is sort of like, you are this bad, horrible person, and too bad, you'll have to, stay that way forever. that that's not true. It gives me permission. When I feel guilty, I feel like I can't change, so it gives me permission not to try. That was a hard thing to face. That it was just an excuse. It was just, oh, okay. I can't do anything about that. I'm lazy by nature. That's one of those things one should not say. So don't always emulate. But this is the thing, so it's not about holding on to mistakes. It's about recognizing them, seeing what you could do differently, and trying again, And slowly, 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 we'll get a little better with our body, speech, and mind. What you think?
Possible.
Possible?
Necessary.
Necessary. And what's really interesting, if you have a habit of being self-centered, your self-interest comes up a lot, which, hey, the Buddha said that's our go-to state. So the wonderful thing is, this is the best way to be self-interested. The more we take care of our mind, and therefore, the actions that follow from our mind, our speech and actions of body, the better off we will be. The happier we will be, the less regrets we will have. The more we'll understand ourselves and what we'd like to, what direction we want to go. So it's like a win-win situation. Everybody wins. We win. The people around us certainly win. Does that mean that our actions will necessarily bear fruit in tomorrow, say, in the moment? Where? Where do they bear fruit?
In the present moment.
Where? For you, yes. In us, within. We can benefit right away. It feels good to take responsibility for actions we wish we hadn't done. It's like, okay, It also feels good to know you're working towards something that's different than that action. Where do we not need to look?
Outside.
Why? Yes, outside.
Because you might confuse the way that you see yourself sometimes. Like if somebody says something towards you and you take it personally, all that word
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah.
But if you just like acknowledge, then that person is coming from their own experience. And it's not mean that I did it. You just let them hold the moment and let them speak sometimes. But don't take it in, because then it shifts how you see your perspective.
Okay, I'll try to recap. Okay, so yes, I mean, I agree. So it's this process of recognizing that even if we change or take responsibility for something and to maybe apologize for something, it doesn't mean the other person will understand. We may not be skillful in our words, or they may just not be in a place to hear it. We may have missed the target. We may have just, they may have said, that's not how I remember the situation at all. So, which is such a good reminder that everything we experience is from our own point of view. And everybody has their own point of view. So it's not they don't match up. So there can be misunderstandings, and it's okay to just say, oh, I'm glad. It's just, you don't, it doesn't mean that you don't want to keep changing whatever habit of mind you thought you had done. Because that's the real clue for yourself. Doesn't matter whether somebody else picked up on it or not. It's something like, in Buddhism, they, just like in all religious traditions, you're not supposed to lie, right? And lying doesn't matter. It's still a lie, even if no one believes it. That's not relevant. You know, it's your action that determines whether that's a negative thing to have done. No, it's not somebody else's, you know.
Would outside also count for maybe peer pressure, because you're reacting the way that you should be reacting, but then maybe your peers think that you should have really went off on this person.
Right. That's just a different point of view. And sometimes we have to, more than once, and especially depending on your age and where you are in life and what your experiences are now, we have to develop some confidence that our decision to not react a certain way is what you want to do. And that's good enough. Even though you're getting pressure from other people. Oh, you should sue. Oh, you should. The energy of others first is not relevant to. I mean, it's not like you don't listen to your friends, and at all, and use that in your judgments and kind of figure things out. But what it comes down to is that you have to feel like it's in the right direction for you and for others. So. And you don't have to change your friends. You could just be comfortable saying, no, I'm not going to do that. Thanks for your opinion. I'm not following it. I have to do that in my head about my own opinions. It's true. Oh, you're so stupid. Oh, okay.
For me, one thing that has been helping a lot is to pause before saying
Say anything.
And sometimes, like what I was just going through, I changed what I was going to say,
I know it's
or
amazing.
just don't say anything.
The pause is like almost magical. And I think that it is because habits are called habits because we're so familiar with them. They seem to arise without effort. So the pause gives us that space to not just react from that energy. To kind of, well, I'm going to choose how to respond, not just to respond out of habit, react out of habit. And it takes a while to recognize that. That's why you have to observe and kind of go, oh, this is my habit and I do this a lot, and that means I've practiced it a lot. I'm very, very familiar with that kind of reaction. And okay, I'm not sure if that's working for me. So, and then you want to have reasons why it's not working for you and reasons why it might be nice to try something differently. You may not know, and you're just kind of exploring, what would it be like to respond in this way? We might have, a friend or something that responds in a completely different way than we would. And we kind of go, gee, that looks good. Because it may open up a different avenue of how you might want to handle it because we see things from our own perspective. And because of our habits, we're blind to so much. That's what's going on. We misread people. We misread their voices, their tones, their action all the time because we're looking at it through our own history, our own background, our own habits. And so it's really nice when you recognize a conversation with two other people are having, and you realize, oh, I didn't hear what she said that way at all, but clearly this person did, and this is a much better outcome. Mm-hmm. So, and then you can look at yourself and kind of go, why did I think it was a criticism, or why did I think it was blah, 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 whatever, whatever sort of gave you that condition to have some negative response to what was said, or anxious response, or impatience response, or feeling, that criticized or judged or whatever. That's how you see that language that somebody else is reading. That gives you an opportunity to look at that a little bit, especially when the other person doesn't take it that way. And this happens a lot in families. Have you ever noticed that none of us seem to change in our families? We see them the same way, they see us the same. Oh, and you're kind of stuck in that place, you know, and so it's so when you do change, they don't get it for a long, long time. Oh, because they're just very familiar. And they can be very familiar and be wrong at the same time, you know, because they're coming from their angle. They've always come from their angle, you know, and we do too. We make those same mistakes of judgment. Recently, I was with my brother after he had a heart surgery, and you know, I spent the week helping him and his wife, and you know, and just you know, going through that. So when I left, I just burst into tears as I was saying, you know, goodbye or good night or whatever it was, and I said, I'm so glad you let me know this was going on for you because years before, I mean, like 30 years before, maybe longer, I'd heard that he had been from my died, so it was 40 years ago, that he had been in the hospital and he didn't tell any of us because he didn't want us to worry about, you know, because mom had just died and all that kind of stuff. And I was so mad at him, you know, just thought he died in that hospital and none of us even knew he was in it, you know, blah, blah, blah. And so I said that to him. I said, I'm so mad at you. I'm so grateful that you let me in on this event in your life, you know. Because he lives far away. He lives in Portland. It's not like we, you know, talk hardly ever. So, but it's, you know, but what was so interesting, he just looked at me going, what are you talking about? And his wife goes, oh, I think she's talking about the time you had pneumonia and you were in the hospital for a couple of days, but we had to, I mean, it was nothing like I remembered. Nothing, you know, it's just I'd taken one sentence out of context and ran with it, you know. He was obviously not in my good graces at that moment. And for 40 years, I've had this, you know, this kind of like, don't leave me out. It's ridiculous. But this is what we do. I mean, you know, what's not ridiculous, it's because we care. You know, we have love and, you know, we really care about each other, you know. And so when we get it wrong or something, we hold a place of suffering, you know. And we do that with all kinds of things, not just with brothers and all that stuff. But it was so bizarre to just burst into tears. You know, it was just like, okay, where is this coming from? But I did know exactly where it was coming from. So it's just interesting. And I'm sure that affected my response to him all these years. That there was something I did. So this is the process, is understanding that we are all in this bubble of this is my universe. And we take everything from the perspective of that, you know, my universe. And we make all kinds of mistakes about what's really happening. And if we can keep our hearts open and not draw conclusions, not make judgments of ourselves or others, just, you know, keep responding to what's actually happening now and try not to, you know, bring our stories into the picture that we're making up anyway. And that's what is the fuel for our rationalizations for responding this way or that way, you know. Does that make sense? So it's a real, the wonderful thing of it is that it's when we have more heartfelt experiences, how that just fills the heart. I mean, it's a very nice way to live your life, even though there's also suffering in there and sorrow in there and loss in there and all that kind of stuff, you know. So it's just, it's worth trying to protect that mind that's responding to things happening. It's worth choosing how you respond, feeling like you have some control, some power over what you do, what you're responsible for, not what someone else is. Questions, thoughts, arguments, disputes? I don't know about that. I'm going to drink water.
So, again, intellectually, I understand all this, but I find sometimes in the example, you are frequently required to use the thing that you have experienced and know about people and people's behavior. So how do you
Yeah,
balance that?
because there's a difference between assessing someone's effectiveness at work and judging them as a person. And we don't do that very well. We cross this line of saying, of coming to conclusions as about the person, and we all approach, differently. So one person's response of how to do an action is going to be different than probably what we would do, how we go about doing that action, So that interferes with our ability kind of there, but you have, if you're the manager, the whatever, I mean, you have, if you need, what am I trying to say? If there's a product or an outcome of some work effort, you need to assess if it was done adequately, if it's going to work or whatever, whatever it is. Again, though, we tend to cross a line into judging the other person, where we think you were a little lazy on that. We think that was sloppy, and we attribute it to the person. Where instead of just focusing on what could be improved here, what we're looking for is this. Sometimes it's total miscommunication. Oh, I didn't really understand that. I see you got this, but you left out this. So so you may need more training in that, kind of thing. But it's letting go of this kind of idea that somehow, as the judgment of a performance or something, that somehow that person, because that's not true. Apples and oranges. Just like for ourselves, we have to recognize that, okay, I may want to, I don't know, think of something I might want to do. I might want to have everybody over and cook a meal.
You're on.
Well,
Yeah.
When?
Yeah, exactly. And I might have this whole image in my mind. Oh, I'll pick this dish because it's a one pot meal, and surely I can do that. And it would just be a total story I'm making up about what I could do.
you would develop attachment to those things too.
Just all about it, and then of course I'd crash into a panic attack. It'd just be ugly. So, but it would be because there's a part of me that would really like to be able to do that, and it's not a realistic assessment of my, where I am. If I never spend a day in a hot kitchen, that's fine with me. I hate heat, So I don't want to know how to cook because I don't like cooking. I've been there, done that. So, so we need to understand ourselves. But I mean, I really appreciate people who really take effort in cooking, and they cook for others, and they bring people food, and they are great entertainers, and they have great, I love being invited to their house. All that stuff, and I think it's a great gift to community to be able to do those things. It's just not me. That's not going to, I have to give something else to community because that's not going to be it. And I have to know that about myself and not judge myself based on some ridiculous notion. Like when I ask people to help me paint, that's not really what I mean. Can you paint for me? My closet needs painting. Can you do that for me? Because I can't help it. Because all I do is get paint all over. So myself and others, and I just have no skill. So it's, it's that recognition. Why am I asking for help when I really need you to just do it for me, please? I'll be the gopher. I'll be happy to do that, and I'll clean up. But you know, so it's a accurate self-assessment. We're not Buddhas. We're not going to be able to do everything. I can't fix your car either. Sorry. You know, there are many, 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 many things I cannot do, and many more now that I'm older. And that's okay. That's true of everybody. But when we judge ourselves, and why couldn't I do that? Why can't I still do that? It's a waste of time. So when we look at this, so same with judging other people's performance, if that's part of your job, it's just looking at what's missing that you think needs to be there and having a conversation about that. It means, okay, I'm not going to give this person that similar job in the near future because they're not giving us what we're looking for. But that doesn't mean anything's wrong with them. We want to match tasks with abilities and recognize when someone can improve their abilities or their knowledge of how to do something with help, and recognize, and talk to them when it may be that, okay, maybe this is just not your thing. This is not going to be a good kind of activity for you. So we have to recognize that in ourselves.
Yeah, I'm discovering as I discover my own stories about myself that I didn't know. I have absolutely no business having a story about anybody else.
Right. Yeah. Who are we kidding? We really think we can read the mind of others. And we think we are all the time. Oh, I know what they're thinking. And we rarely actually listen and really try to hear and understand what they're telling us. Because we're too quick with our habit energy of going, oh, they've just offended me. They've just hurt me. They've just, Whereas an openness to going, I'm not going to judge what, that they're attacking me or that it probably has nothing to do with me. That's that self-interest, thinking we're the center of the universe all the time. So in all our interactions, we think it's all about us. Every expression on the other person's face, every word, everything is a judgment of us. And that's not true. So it's helpful to just kind of every now and then just say, if I took myself out of this picture, what would it look like?
What exactly do you mean by that?
I mean, like, if I take out my assumptions, my personal trigger points, that kind of stuff. If I just if I imagine this happening to someone else, and I look at what was said, people's expressions, what would I come to perhaps a different conclusion? Could I see it from a different angle? If you try to look at it from everybody's angle that was involved in the opinion, it's kind of like, maybe it's not the way I'm grasping at it to be. And then sometimes you even have the opportunity to check up, to actually ask someone that was involved, this is what I heard. Is that what you said? It's because it's interesting. But when we're I had a job one time where I was a student statistics for the National AIDS Hotline. And we had to, we were trying to get information from the people who would call in to help convince the government that this is a helpful thing to do, was to teach them. And so I had to create all sorts of like questionnaires for people who answered those phone calls, you know. And so a meeting's about what that should look like, you know, and what the questions are. I would have to go in going, I think this is a really important thing to be trying to do to continue to get funding for this hotline. So I need to just take my ego completely out of it and not worry if they trash my entire, you know, work, because the work's more important than the way I'm thinking about it. You know, then my worries about this or that or looking stupid or going, oh, you think that's going to elicit what you were hoping for, whatever, you know. And there were other statisticians saying, you know, there was the technical, you know, like, oh, I don't think you could say that that would mean this, you know, kind of thing, especially on this kind of stuff, soft stuff, not mathematics. So, and it was like, my meetings were so much better than I ever anticipated when I was before. Remember this about you. This is, you know, you're trying to get something done, and then I'd walk in. I mean, I had to give a pep talk every time, but walk in, and the meeting had a whole different. It was just a totally different experience for me. You know, all I did was see it as a condition for learning. And so, you know, so it opens up possibilities. You know, if we just recognize we're in our own way so much, you know, and we're in everybody else's way so much. So, you know, so if we can just, you know, recognize, okay, my self-opinion, my worry about my boss's opinion, my, you know, whether I'm doing this well, is getting in the way of me being able to hear what I need to hear. And I don't want it to interfere. So that's one of the things, like in different, you know, you can come at something from a different perspective, you know, and just decide, okay, you know, what is it you know, ideally, what would I want out of this situation? You know, ideally meaning not when it's just about me, but ideally, you know. But anyway, so that's what I mean.
Thank
And we have these in little, I mean, it's easier to see in a work situation, you know, but we can do it with, you know, we can recognize it within our friendships, in our interactions with just other people, you know, that, you know, we're coming at it, instead of coming at it from just an open, this is another human being I'm having a conversation with, you know. If we're coming at it from the angle of, you know, I wonder what they're going to say to me now, or what, you know, I don't know, some closed door that we put up. That takes a lot of forgiveness towards self. You know, you have to, you know, forgive the fact you have buttons. You know, it's not great to have buttons, you know, causes me all kinds of suffering. You know, but it's like, okay, this is where I am. And I want to work on them. And I want to take responsibility that they're my buttons. And when I can, I want to set them aside again and again and again, you know, to be able to enter something cleanly. So, but it takes that ability to just kind of, with, you know, what was the phrase? Unconditional kindness to yourself. We really need to accept all the flaws that we, you know, we in our actions and all this kind of the buttons that we, you know, create, and because we're just mistaken about what leads us to happiness, you know, and we don't want to suffer, and we're just mistaken about what is going to do that. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, that's very familiar. So,
Can you talk a little bit about if you feel like you deserve to suffer, why you should not feel that way?
because what does deserve have to do with it? What does deserve imply?
That you're flawed.
So that in that you can't have happiness, say, for example, for an easy, you know, because you haven't earned it. I know, like, it's kind of this attitude that people don't just in general, you know, just or out of have to prove themselves. Is that true? That way. Well, you were all children, you know. Yes, you might not deserve an A on a test because you didn't do the work and you missed all the, you know, blah blah blah. There's some things that, you know, fail. That means you're not well because you don't have a test. No, doesn't mean you deserve it. No. Part of the Buddha, we all have the potential to become, and it's wisdom to happiness. That's self. That's not just be nuts not to want happiness. It's basically what it said. You know, like who wants suffering? Any volunteers? You know, I mean, that's not wisdom. Does it mean that there isn't cause and effect? No, there is cause and effect. So that's why it matters what's going on in our minds and what actions we have of body and speech, because our actions of body and speech, you know, can determine whether we have any friends. Yeah.
There are times that there's something going on in my life right now where there's a moral dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna with doing my homework and exploring myself and what I believe is not only right for me, but for someone who's very ill, I've come up with a decision which is going to hurt someone else.
Yeah.
And I am fearful, and I know I'm feeling fear,
Right.
to express that to somebody else.
And
Because,
yeah.
and I know why, after sitting here, I know I want them to like
right.
me and my decision.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna have to rise above that and say it anyway.
Yeah. Be brave.
Yes.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I thank you for what you've done.
This is the point, is that we have to develop some inner and from there. Sometimes we're wrong. You know, we have to also know that. And we have to learn from that. We go, oh, I thought I had absolutely the right decision. And then we hear somebody else going, well, you know, this is how I'm responding to that. But we have to be okay with the fact that no, not everybody's going to be happy with our decisions. Not everybody either. So and that's a decision that they what you, I mean, just is not, you know, it that a person by the decision, you know. So it's hard. My knee, I get like grab some ideas to do something different. Okay. Yeah, but wait, I want to get back here about this deserving. So wanting someone to have happiness and not to have suffering is this the definition of compassion and Buddhism. Does not mean that we can give that to them. And that's true for us. We have to create the cause for our happiness. We have to create the cause for our suffering, that kind of thing. And according to the teachings, the way in which, you know, matters in terms of whether it's going to result in happiness or suffering in the long term. So the habit of like, harsh words and angry words or blah blah blah, you know, results in receiving that in the future from others. You get yelled a lot, and, you know, blah blah blah. So the mistake we make is not understanding how to be happy. You know, because according to the Buddha, the path to happiness is cherishing others. Does that mean no? It's cherishing others the way we cherish ourselves. It's treating everybody, you know, and recognizing the more we put them above us, the more we will have happiness. That we'll start to recognize they're interdependent, interconnected. That just taking care of ourselves, just taking care of our buttons, just saying all that won't work. Because we live in an interdependent, interconnected society. And so it means sometimes you don't get what you want, you know, and that's sort of not relevant. Nobody's getting what they want all the time, or any of this, however you want to look at it. You know, that it's not about that. It's about learning that even our thoughts have consequences, because they have consequences in how it directs our actions of speech and body. And then that has consequences to others, you know. So we really want to have that inner wisdom and recognize that how we treat others, just like the golden rule, you know, that how we treat others, how we respond in our behavior and our speech is going to matter. You know, so in some way, some people would say, well, that's what sounds like you have to deserve happiness. But there's no one out there judging our actions. It's literally just cause and effect. You know? Yes, Randy.
I think that what Rosie was saying about asking if you deserve something is very much connected to how you were raised.
Oh, of course.
And your parents. I mean, I don't want to blame my parents.
But you will.
You know, always saying, but did you deserve it? Did you deserve it?
Yeah.
And that breeds something within yourself that's just like rings a bell.
Yeah, and the Buddha will just say you were born in that family for a reason. You were treating people like that before. And you're
what?
You were born in that family for a reason.
Yeah.
Because you were treating others that way in previous lives. You know, so like this idea that somebody else is doing, they taught me that. Well, there's a reason you're in that family. So, and it's your past actions. So obviously you didn't, as a baby, create that. No, you know, this is the thing. It's so this idea of, and so that's where we want to use our wisdom. You know, we grow up and we go, what's this about deserving? We need to make the distinction between, you know, the way our whole world seems to work on that you do a certain amount of work and you get a certain kind of, you know, what's that word? Recompense for it? Or recognition, you know, all those kind of things. But that has to do with skills, not with inner peace. The more we grasp on to having to get rewards or status or money or any of this thing that's external to us for our inner peace, we're never going to be happy because we'll never get enough, you know. So the inner peace part doesn't have to be earned. It just takes effort to create the experience, because what we mostly create is self-criticism, stories, judgments, all this kind of stuff. So yeah.
So is it the inner peace that reverses the wheel of karma then?
It's how we act because of having inner peace.
Mhm.
Because we don't grasp, we don't have expectations, we don't create causes for suffering. Because we also,
reverses our karma.
it doesn't reverse our karma, we're just not creating any more new karma that's in the way our habits were. You know, so the only thing that like just burns all those seeds up in our karma is realizing emptiness, recognizing how things exist. That's a whole other topic. So, but
Start on that now.
no, I think that would not go over well. Yeah. So, but it is the same thing. It's that we misunderstand where happiness comes from. We think it comes from outside, you know, and it's just not true. You know, the parents who don't just give their kids treats every time that, you know, and you think, well, you know, I wish my parents had treated me that way, and then maybe I wouldn't crave so much. Yeah, ridiculous. But we do have a society that uses sensory delights as rewards. And so if you do that for yourself, you want to look at that because you're feeding your cravings, you know, and you're mistaking rewards for happiness.
No. Tell that to my dog.
Yeah, right. That's why you can't work with his mind. You know, but yeah, I mean, of course, and your dog is totally dependent on you for food. And for
Absolutely. And
treats.
she talks to me if I don't give it to her when she wants.
I understand that, you know.
Not nicely, too.
Yeah, but you can go out and get your food. Your dog can't.
Exactly.
So it's called wisdom, knowing who you have to manipulate to get what you want, what you need. This is why we don't, this is one of the advantages of not being born an animal, is we are able to actually understand a whole lot more layers going on, you know? And it's this, but really look at yourself and think, you know, notice if you are feeding your craving by rewarding yourself for, you know, oh, I didn't yell at that person, yay, chocolate. Because that may not work out well for you. You know, that may just be feeding a, you know, attachment. You know, so yeah, it might help you reduce your aversion and your anger and your, you know, acting it out, you know, but it might not be a really skillful way to do it in the long term. Yeah.
But that confused me a little.
Okay.
If I might, like, I was talking to someone yesterday, and a gentleman, and he said to me, "Oh, you might be very full of yourself because I'm asking you for dinner." And instead of me responding the way that I was thinking, I took
Okay.
a pause.
Let's say, can you say again what he said?
He
She
said,
said-
like, and I was full of myself because he was asking me to dinner. Like,
Oh.
I felt too important. And my response, my ego was going to, and then I say, with love, and I say, no, I'm very thankful for the time you take to speak to me. So then, after the run, the conversation was very soft. It was very soft and nice. Is that, so that's where it's end, right? So to me, is that like, when is a reward? Because I don't feel like I have to reward myself. I feel like, oh, I took the pause, like the gentleman said, I paused before I respond, and then it was a different interaction. Where is a reward in there? Because I want to make sure that I don't get to that, like, rewarding myself.
Well, it'd be more like then you go home and say, I deserve a treat for,
Oh, no, okay.
yeah. I mean, that's all. It's just, it's like, and actually what we want is the reward for how we feel inside. That is the reward, is how we feel inside. You know, that this was the right thing to do. This fits with my values. This fits inside. You know, because the more we can let go of external rewards, because that's that expectation game. That's that's also thinking that our happiness and suffering exist out here when it really is here. It's our habits of mind. Because everything we experience is through the mind. So, So it's good to counter those thoughts about deserving something. I don't deserve this or that, and try to reframe that, So I mean, sometimes it's correct to say, I shouldn't be surprised that they're mad because the way I acted, you know? So it's like there is cause and effect in our actions. And we all need, and hope for unconditional love, but we don't give it much, even for ourselves, We're worthy of love, we're valuable, regardless. Period. That's it, because we exist. Now, does that mean all our actions of speech and body are good ones? No. And karma will take care of whether you get suffering or happiness from our actions. It just won't be instant. And that's one of the mistakes we make.
That's why we have pets.
Yes. Taking care of a living being who loves you for it, so called. We call it love. When it's really like, if I smile when she comes in, I'll get a treat. And that's perfectly fine. Yes.
So what are the words you should say to yourself to forgive yourself if you've done something? Now, they're like words that you could.
Well, it's this idea that I can't expect perfection from myself. I will make mistakes. I love people who make mistakes. That I'm worthy of love, even love of myself, even though I make mistakes. It's that really being able, yes, and we have compassion for yourself. Oh, I wish I could be free of this suffering from, whatever it is in that moment, because it's we have to think about the outcome if people are free of suffering, including ourselves. If we're free of that, of the effects of our negative actions, that means we've been doing good actions. We're not creating the cause for suffering. That means we've been creating the cause for happiness. But we're not Buddhas.
Been doing this a long time.
Eons, since beginningless time. Try to get your mind around that. The mind has no beginning, no end. We just keep changing, storylines. So the more we can work on, because we see this in children, you see babies are born and they have habits, they bring them with them. They don't, it's not like they're just a clean slate of no habits, no, they have habits. They have preferences, they have all that kind of stuff, and we bring them with us. And so the more we take care of it, in this life, and the more we strengthen certain habits in this life, we'll probably carry those with us too. So we don't want to be like, I don't want to be born as a domestic pet, even in the US, where they love their pets and they give them treats, So if I keep rewarding myself for every little, that might be an unintended consequence of that, So anyway, all right. Yes, Graciela.
Thinking that chocolate seems an option. Say I feel bad, right? That's a perfect opportunity for chocolate, except that it doesn't last. And so if I'm feeling good, then that could be an internal reward. That's easy. But when I'm feeling bad, it seems like
that's why you want to look at, why am I feeling bad? Where's my self-interest in this? What's going on? What am I not getting that I want? Or what am I getting that I don't want that's causing me to feel bad? Because it's about you. It's not about something else. It's about our interpretation of what's happening. And we feel bad usually because there's something we're not getting that we want. So rewarding that with chocolate is not a great idea. It doesn't mean, of course, it takes, this does not mean if you go home and you feed your bad mood with chocolate and somehow that, you're just the worst person ever, you know. No, it's just you really want to look at, are you in control of it's just like everything. We know this, there's emotional eating, that's not always healthy, so it's in fact never healthy. But we have to, again, that unconditional kindness towards ourselves, that sometimes we will go, oh, okay, I feel bad. What's that about? What, is my ego been smooshed? Is it because I'm lonely, sad, whatever, because we just, and then we have to, okay, well, that's the way it is, right? That's not, my friends are away. If you live here year round and a lot of your friends are snowbirds, you go through this every year. They leave you, so. And it's why we have to develop our own inner wisdom and inner confidence, because there is no right answer. It's going to depend on the circumstances, and you need to be able to evaluate that. Okay. At least I'm tired. Anybody else? Okay. What that? Oh my goodness. All right. So we now can rejoice that we all put such great effort into trying to understand things from perhaps a different angle, or try to reinforce some things we already have learned and we're trying to put into practice. That's great. It's great to work on your mind. Your mind and heart are the same word in Buddhism. So it's this, it's this, in fact, if you ask Tibetans to point to the mind, they point to their heart, because they don't separate wisdom from love. They go together, so when whereas we kind of go, well, wisdom's all about intelligence or intellect or blah blah blah. It's somehow a different kind of mind. But according to the Buddha, compassion and love and kindness, and those are really virtuous minds. So I had a point. So we get to rejoice in our efforts, our positive efforts. Those will lead to positive results. Every moment of thought is placing some imprint on the mind that will ripen in the future in some way. A lot of them are new, but all our positive efforts, will not just chocolate. So, but any pleasures we have come from our positive actions. Any suffering we have comes from our negative actions. It's not about other people doing to us. So, big topic. Anyway, so now we rejoice in that, we've created some positive causes. And want to imagine being able to share the positive results with everyone else, So we'll dedicate. And this is when I was talking about purifying, at the end of the day, kind of going through your day and noticing what you didn't do so great and all that kind of stuff. The very last thing you want to do is go through your day and go, oh, I did that well. Oh, that was good. Oh, did you see me pause and rejoice? Because we miss all the qualities if we're just, we have all these good qualities. That's called Buddha potential. Rejoice, but get in the habit of recognizing, so that sometimes you won't be beating yourself up for, the mistakes. You can be kind of like, good job. So anyway. So there it is. Okay, this is Shantideva's prayer. May all beings everywhere plagued by sufferings of body and mind attain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid of little, mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sound. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be free. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as faith remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I remain to dispel the miseries of the world. And then for the long life of His Holiness. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain as still as far as the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Bravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and son, along with the lineage master, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings of explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that's never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the soul gave way through which all benefit and happiness emerged. And for mother living beings, who suddenly departed, peace, what a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples.